In today's episode, we're exploring 5 horrifying grizzly bear encounters that ended in tragedy. From a freelance nature photographer clamped down by a bear to a zookeeper trapped with a 700-pound predator. But first, let's begin with the first story, where one man's overconfidence cost him everything. It was October 14th, 2016. And the remote cabin of Harold Hal Bergstrom sat nestled deep in the Montana wilderness, just 15 miles from the eastern boundary of Glacier National Park. The rustic log structure, surrounded by towering pines and golden aspens touched by early autumn frost, had been Harold's sanctuary for 8 years since his beloved wife Margaret lost her battle with cancer. At 60, the retired forest ranger had chosen complete isolation over the painful memories of their suburban home, finding solace in the same wilderness he had protected for over 3 decades. Harold's weathered hands moved methodically as he split firewood behind his cabin, the rhythmic thud of his axe echoing across the silent valley. The first significant snowfall of the season had arrived unexpectedly, blanketing the surrounding peaks in pristine white and signaling the approach of a harsh Montana winter. The cabin itself reflected Harold's stubborn independence and disdain for what he considered unnecessary precautions. Unlike neighboring properties, his home lacked proper bear-proofing measures. No reinforced doors, no bear-resistant garbage containers, and no electric fencing. Harold viewed such precautions as signs of weakness, believing his knowledge of animal behavior made him immune to the dangers that threatened ordinary people. That afternoon, Harold had been smoking salmon in his kitchen, the rich aroma filling his home as he prepared his winter protein stores. The scent drifted through the mountain air, carried by shifting winds across miles of wilderness, where one of nature's most powerful predators was beginning his final preparations for winter hibernation. Grizzly bears are among North America's most formidable predators, with adult males weighing between 600 and 800 pounds and possessing the strength to overturn automobiles. These massive omnivores can run up to 35 miles per hour despite their bulk, and their sense of smell is 7 times more powerful than a bloodhound's, allowing them to detect food sources from miles away. During late fall, grizzlies enter a state called hyperphagia, consuming up to 20,000 calories per day to build fat reserves for winter hibernation. As evening approached, Harold propped open his back door to create a cross breeze while he carried armloads of split wood into his cabin. What Harold didn't realize was that a massive 800-pound male grizzly had been following the salmon scent for over 2 miles, drawn by the promise of an easy meal. On his final trip inside, he headed to the kitchen to brew coffee, completely unaware that the enormous grizzly had approached his property and was now investigating the tantalizing smells emanating from his open door. Harold discovered the intruder when he returned to his living room and found the 800-pound grizzly systematically destroying his kitchen. Cabinets hung open, their contents scattered across the floor, while the bear's powerful claws had shredded packages and containers in his search for food. Harold's military training kicked in as he assessed the situation, but his decades of experience with smaller black bears led him to make a fatal miscalculation. He began banging metal pots together and shouting at the top of his lungs, tactics that had successfully driven away black bears in the past. The massive bear lifted his head from the refrigerator and fixed his small, dark eyes on Harold. Instead of retreating, the grizzly's body language shifted to pure aggression. His ears flattened against his skull, his massive shoulders hunched forward, and his lips pulled back to reveal 4-inch canine teeth designed for crushing bone. Harold realized his mistake and moved toward the wall-mounted rifle rack where his .3006 hunting rifle waited. But the narrow hallway that had seemed cozy during 8 years of solitary living now became a death trap. The bear crossed the room with shocking speed, closing the distance before Harold could properly shoulder the rifle. The impact drove him backward into the living room, the force slamming his back against the floor and knocking the weapon from his grip. His ribs gave under the bear's weight with a wet crack as a massive paw pressed down through his chest. The bear's jaws dropped onto the side of his skull in a single, powerful bite, enough force to cause immediate neurological collapse. What followed was mechanical and focused. The bear raked its claws through Harold's torso with the same single-minded drive it had shown when it tore through the kitchen, responding to movement only long enough to remove it from its path to food. The animal's behavior remained consistent with a food-conditioned intrusion, not active predatory hunting. Harold's body was discovered 3 days later when his neighbor, rancher Bill Morrison, arrived to check on him after noticing that Harold hadn't picked up his mail. Wildlife officials tracked the bear for 2 days, eventually tranquilizing it near a creek bed 5 miles from the cabin. Due to the confirmed fatal attack, the animal was euthanized on site in accordance with state wildlife policy. Harold's death prompted new discussions about bear-proofing requirements for remote properties. But Harold wasn't the only person whose expertise failed them when facing a grizzly bear. In Alaska, a nature photographer's pursuit of the perfect shot would lead to a deadly encounter with a protective mother and her cubs. It was June 7, 2015, and the pristine wilderness of Katmai National Park in Alaska buzzed with the activity of peak salmon season. The Brooks River, famous for its spectacular brown bear viewing opportunities, attracted photographers and tourists from around the world who came to witness one of nature's most impressive displays. Elena Vasquez had positioned herself along the riverbank at dawn, her professional camera equipment spread across a waterproof tarp as she prepared for what she hoped would be a career-defining photography session. At 34, Elena was a freelance nature photographer from Anchorage who had been struggling to establish herself in the competitive world of wildlife photography. Her recent divorce had left her financially strained and desperate to capture award-winning images that could launch her career to the next level. She had been photographing bears for 3 years, gradually building a portfolio that showed promise but lacked the dramatic impact needed to attract major magazine contracts. Elena's confidence in reading bear behavior had grown with each successful photo session, leading her to take increasingly bold risks in pursuit of unique shots. This confidence, combined with financial pressure and artistic ambition, would prove to be a deadly combination. Coastal brown bears are among the world's largest terrestrial predators, with adult females weighing between 400 and 600 pounds. During salmon season, these massive omnivores gather at prime fishing locations where they can consume up to 30 salmon per day, building crucial fat reserves for winter hibernation. Mother bears with cubs are particularly dangerous during this time, as they must protect their offspring while competing with larger males for the best fishing spots. Their protective instincts are heightened to extreme levels, and they will attack any perceived threat to their cubs without warning. That morning, Elena had been photographing a mother bear with 2 yearling cubs as they fished in the shallow rapids. The 600-pound sow was an experienced fisher, teaching her cubs the techniques they would need to survive on their own. Elena had initially kept the required 50-yard distance set by park regulations for brown bear viewing, but as the light shifted and the scene grew more photogenic, she began creeping closer, eventually closing the gap to just 30 yards. Her financial desperation overrode her safety training as she moved steadily closer to the fishing bears. The mother bear had been displaying increasingly agitated body language as Elena approached, but the photographer was so focused on her camera's viewfinder that she missed the warning signs. Elena continued her approach until she was within 30 yards of the bear family, far closer than park regulations allowed, and well within the mother bear's critical defense zone. The sow's response was immediate and purely defensive. Like most brown bear encounters involving cubs, The objective was to neutralize a perceived threat as quickly as possible, rather than to hunt or feed. The 600-pound mother bear charged with explosive speed, covering the 30 yards between them in less than 3 seconds. Elena looked up from her viewfinder just in time to see 600 pounds of muscle moving with single-purpose efficiency, bearing down on her. She tried to run, but immediately tripped over her scattered camera equipment, falling face-first onto the rocky riverbank. The mother bear's massive paws struck Elena's back with enough force to fracture bone, driving her into the rocky ground while her claws raked across her torso. The bear's jaws clamped down on Elena's head and neck, her 4-inch canines puncturing through skull bone and severing major arteries. The protective mother focused contact on the head and torso, using her weight to pin her, while the jaws worked with mechanical precision. The entire strike sequence lasted less than a minute before the sow immediately guided her cubs away from the area. Other photographers witnessed the incident from the required safe distance, but could only call for help and document the consequences of violating distance protocols. Elena died from massive trauma before park rangers could arrive at the remote location. The mother bear and her cubs were monitored but not relocated, as the attack had occurred due to human error in violating established safety protocols. Elena's death became a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing artistic vision over personal safety in wildlife photography. The investigation revealed that Elena had been warned multiple times by park rangers about maintaining proper distances from bears, but financial pressure and artistic ambition had driven her to take increasingly dangerous risks. Her death prompted renewed emphasis on safety education for wildlife photographers and stricter enforcement of distance regulations in national parks. But even experienced professionals weren't immune to deadly encounters with grizzly bears. In Seattle, a zookeeper's routine morning would turn into a nightmare when a mechanical failure trapped him with 700 pounds of apex predator. It was March 22, 2017, and the privately operated wildlife facility on the outskirts of Seattle was beginning another busy day of animal care and public education. The morning air was crisp and filled with the sounds of awakening animals as staff members arrived to begin their daily routines. Marcus Thompson, a 29-year-old zookeeper with 6 years of experience working with large mammals, was preparing for what should have been a routine feeding session with Kodiak, the facility's 700-pound male grizzly bear. Marcus had built his reputation on strict adherence to safety protocols and his calm, methodical approach to working with dangerous animals. His colleagues respected his expertise and steady demeanor, qualities that had earned him a promotion track toward becoming head of the carnivore department. Marcus was engaged to Sarah, a fellow zookeeper who worked with the facility's primate collection, and they were planning their wedding for the following spring. The grizzly exhibit at the wildlife facility was well maintained, featuring multiple holding areas, automated door systems, and safety measures designed to prevent exactly the kind of accident that was about to occur. Marcus had worked with Kodiak for over 2 years and had developed what he believed was a professional understanding of the massive bear's behavior patterns and temperament. Kodiak was a rescued bear who had been brought to the facility as an orphaned cub after his mother was killed by poachers in Alaska. Now fully grown at 700 pounds, he was an impressive specimen who served as an ambassador for his species while living in comfortable captivity. Grizzly bears in captivity retain all their natural behaviors and instincts, including powerful territorial drives and defensive responses to perceived threats. Even bears raised from cubs can become extremely dangerous when startled or when they feel their territory is being invaded. Their incredible strength, speed, and predatory instincts make them among the most dangerous animals in any zoological collection, requiring constant vigilance and multiple safety systems to prevent accidents. That morning, Marcus followed his established routine of checking the automated systems that controlled access between Kodiak's outdoor exhibit and his indoor holding areas. The computer display showed that Kodiak was secured in his holding area, allowing Marcus safe access to the main exhibit for cleaning and food preparation. What Marcus didn't know was that a mechanical failure in the door system had allowed Kodiak to return to the main exhibit without triggering the safety alerts. Marcus entered the exhibit carrying fresh hay and Kodiak's morning meal, completely unaware that the massive bear was present in the enclosure. Marcus began spreading hay near the feeding area, his back turned to the rock formation where Kodiak was resting. Kodiak appeared silently from behind the large rocks, his massive frame moving with surprising stealth across the exhibit floor. Marcus turned around to find himself face to face with 700 pounds of apex predator in an enclosed space with no escape route. Kodiak charged with devastating force, his massive body covering the distance between them in seconds. Marcus tried to use a wheelbarrow as a barrier, but the bear's 700-pound frame smashed through the obstacle like it was made of paper. Kodiak's enormous paws struck Marcus in the chest, sending him crashing backward into the exhibit's concrete wall with bone-crushing impact. The massive bear's jaws clamped down on Marcus's shoulder and neck, his 4-inch canine teeth puncturing through muscle and bone, while his powerful bite force crushed vital structures. Kodiak's response was immediate and explosive. Instead of a prolonged or feeding-driven attack, he delivered short, powerful bursts of aggression, striking whenever Marcus attempted to move or shield himself. Each impact was a territorial reaction rather than predation, aimed at eliminating what the bear perceived as an intruder inside his space. The facility's emergency response team arrived within seconds, but the exhibit's design prevented a clear shot without risking hitting Marcus. The veterinary team deployed tranquilizer equipment, but Marcus had already sustained fatal injuries during the brief but devastating attack. Marcus died from his injuries despite the immediate response of his colleagues and emergency medical personnel. The incident triggered a comprehensive OSHA investigation and regional media coverage. Facility officials held emergency press conferences while facing intense public scrutiny and potential lawsuits from Marcus's family. Following standard protocol for keeper fatalities involving dangerous animals, Kodiak was euthanized within hours of the attack. The incident prompted a complete overhaul of the facility's safety systems and protocols, with new redundant measures implemented to prevent similar mechanical failures. The investigation revealed that the door system failure was caused by a software glitch that had gone undetected by routine maintenance checks. Marcus's death became a catalyst for improved technology and safety protocols in private wildlife facilities across the country, ensuring that his tragic loss would help protect future generations of animal care professionals. But mechanical failures weren't the only way that Grizzly encounters turned deadly. In Yellowstone, a camper's refusal to follow basic safety rules would lead to a midnight attack that claimed her life in front of her horrified boyfriend. It was August 19, 2014, and the designated campground in Yellowstone National Park's backcountry was settling into the peaceful quiet of a summer evening. Rebecca "Becca" O'Sullivan and her boyfriend Jake had set up their tent in a prime location surrounded by towering pines and within walking distance of a crystal-clear mountain stream. The 26-year-old nurse from Denver was celebrating their 2-year anniversary with what was supposed to be a romantic camping adventure in one of America's most beautiful wilderness areas. Becca was an experienced hiker who had conquered numerous Colorado peaks, but camping in Grizzly country was new territory for her. Her stubborn independence and dislike of being told what to do had created tension with Jake throughout their relationship. And this camping trip was no exception. Despite Jake's repeated warnings about bear safety protocols, Becca had insisted on bringing scented toiletries, snacks, and other aromatic items into their tent. The couple had spent the day hiking through spectacular mountain scenery, photographing wildlife, and enjoying the pristine wilderness that made Yellowstone famous. As evening approached, Jake had tried once again to convince Becca to store their food and scented items in the bear-proof containers provided by the Park Service. Becca dismissed his concerns as paranoia, insisting that bears were more afraid of humans than humans were of bears. Yellowstone National Park sits at the core of a larger 22 million-acre ecosystem that supports over 1,000 grizzlies. Around 150 to 200 of those bears have home ranges that overlap directly with the park's boundaries, and many have learned to associate human campsites with easy calorie opportunities. Young male bears are particularly dangerous, as they are often desperate for calories and willing to take risks that older, more experienced bears would avoid. Their powerful sense of smell can detect food odors from miles away, drawing them directly to improperly secured campsites. That night, Becca and Jake settled into their tent with a false sense of security, surrounded by the peaceful sounds of the wilderness. Becca had hidden energy bars, trail mix, and scented toiletries in her sleeping bag, convinced that the thin nylon walls of their tent would provide adequate protection from any curious wildlife. Jake had given up arguing with her, but his unease kept him from falling into deep sleep. Around 2 a.m., a young male grizzly weighing approximately 400 pounds approached their campsite, drawn by the concentrated scents emanating from their tent. The subadult bear was in his third year of independence from his mother and was still learning to navigate the complex world of finding food while avoiding larger, more dominant bears. His desperation for calories had led him to investigate human campsites despite his natural wariness. The bear began investigating their tent by sniffing around the perimeter, his powerful nose easily detecting the concentrated food odors coming from inside. When gentle pawing at the tent walls didn't provide access to the food sources, the young grizzly began using his claws to tear at the nylon fabric. The sound of ripping fabric and heavy breathing just inches from their heads woke both campers instantly. Jake immediately recognized the situation and began speaking in calm, low tones while slowly reaching for their bear spray. His training had taught him to avoid sudden movements and loud noises that might trigger an attack. But Becca's reaction was exactly the opposite. Panic overtook her rational thinking, and she screamed while scrambling toward the tent's exit. Becca's sudden movement and loud vocalizations triggered a chase response, shifting the bear's behavior from simple food investigation to a high-energy pursuit driven by movement and opportunity rather than true predatory intent. She burst from the tent and began running toward the tree line. The bear caught Becca within 20 yards of their campsite, his powerful legs easily outpacing her desperate sprint. His massive paws struck her back with crushing force, sending her tumbling face first into the rocky ground, while his weight pinned her beneath his massive frame. The bear's jaws clamped down on Becca's neck and shoulders, his teeth puncturing through vital structures, while his claws raked across her torso. Jake emerged from the tent with their bear spray and began making loud noises while throwing rocks and camping equipment at the attacking bear. His desperate efforts to distract the grizzly had limited effect, as the bear was now fully committed to his attack on Becca. The young male's inexperience made him more unpredictable and dangerous than an older bear might have been. Other campers in the area were awakened by Becca's screams and Jake's shouts for help. Several arrived with additional bear spray and emergency flares, creating enough commotion to finally drive the young grizzly away from Becca's motionless form. The bear retreated into the darkness, leaving behind a scene of devastation that would haunt the witnesses for years. Becca had suffered catastrophic injuries to her neck, torso, and limbs during the brief but violent attack. Despite the quick response of fellow campers and the arrival of park rangers, She died from massive blood loss during the helicopter evacuation to the nearest trauma center. The young grizzly was tracked and relocated to a remote area of the park, as his behavior was considered typical for a food-conditioned bear rather than abnormally aggressive. The investigation revealed that Becca's violation of food storage regulations had directly contributed to the fatal encounter. The campsite was temporarily closed, and officials posted hazard advisories to warn other backcountry visitors. Her death prompted renewed emphasis on bear safety education and stricter enforcement of food storage requirements throughout Yellowstone. Jake required extensive counseling to deal with the trauma of witnessing the attack and his inability to save the woman he loved. The tragedy became a powerful reminder that wilderness safety rules exist for critical reasons, and that even experienced outdoor enthusiasts can fall victim to overconfidence and poor decision-making. Becca's death highlighted the importance of following established protocols, even when they seem unnecessary or overly cautious. But food storage wasn't the only factor that could lead to deadly grizzly encounters. In Montana, a hiker's wrong turn and panicked reaction would cost him his life when he stumbled upon a feeding bear in her territory. It was September 5, 2013, and the rugged backcountry of Glacier National Park stretched endlessly in all directions as David Chen made his way along what he believed was the established trail system. The 38-year-old software engineer from Seattle was 3 days into his first solo backpacking adventure, a journey he had planned as a way to rebuild his confidence and independence following a difficult divorce. The autumn air was crisp and clear, with golden aspens providing a stunning backdrop to the towering peaks that surrounded him. David's inexperience in wilderness navigation had led him astray from the marked trail system, though he remained unaware of his mistake as he pushed deeper into unmarked territory. His minimal preparation and overconfidence in his ability to handle whatever challenges the wilderness might present had already put him in a dangerous situation that was about to become deadly. His backpack contained basic camping gear, but lacked essential bear safety equipment like bear spray or proper food storage containers. David had dismissed such precautions as unnecessary paranoia, believing that his intelligence and urban problem-solving skills would be sufficient to handle any wildlife encounters. This dangerous overconfidence would prove fatal when he stumbled into a situation that required immediate wilderness expertise. The unmarked trail David was following wound through dense forest and rocky terrain that provided perfect habitat for the grizzly bears that called Glacier National Park home. He had been hiking for several hours without seeing any other humans, a solitude that he found both exhilarating and slightly unnerving. The silence of the deep wilderness was broken only by his footsteps and the occasional call of distant birds. Grizzly bears are opportunistic feeders that will defend food sources aggressively, especially during the fall months when they are building fat reserves for winter hibernation. A bear that has claimed a large carcass will often remain in the immediate area for days, driving away any potential competitors or threats. Female grizzlies are particularly aggressive when defending food sources, as they must consume enough calories to survive hibernation and potentially nurse cubs the following spring. David rounded a bend in the trail and found himself face-to-face with a 500-pound female grizzly bear feeding on a deer carcass just 30 yards ahead. The massive sow was so focused on her meal that she hadn't detected his approach. But the moment David appeared in her line of sight, her entire demeanor changed from calm feeding to aggressive territorial defense. The bear's ears flattened against her skull as she rose to her full height, her massive shoulders hunching forward in a classic threat display. David froze in place, his mind racing as he tried to process the reality of encountering one of North America's most dangerous predators at close range. His lack of wilderness experience left him completely unprepared for the split-second decision that would determine whether he lived or died. Instead of slowly backing away while avoiding direct eye contact, David remained motionless for several critical seconds before his panic overwhelmed his rational thinking. He suddenly turned and began running at full speed back down the trail, his heavy backpack bouncing wildly as he crashed through the underbrush in desperate flight. David's sudden movement triggered a high-intensity chase response, shifting the bear's behavior from guarding a food source to immediate threat removal driven by motion and proximity rather than predatory intent. She surged forward instantly, her powerful legs propelling her through the forest with speed that erased David's head start in seconds. The bear caught David within 50 yards, her massive paws striking his back with bone-crushing force that sent him tumbling face-first into the rocky trail. His backpack absorbed some of the initial impact, but the bear's 500-pound frame quickly pinned him to the ground while her razor-sharp claws began raking across his torso and limbs. The grizzly's powerful jaws clamped down on David's back and shoulders, her 4-inch canine teeth puncturing through muscle and bone while her bite force crushed vital structures. David tried to protect his vital organs by curling into a ball, but his movements only intensified the bear's attack, as any motion was perceived as a renewed threat to her food source. The attack itself lasted less than a minute, but each time David tried to move, the bear returned to strike again before circling back to guard the carcass. Her massive claws opened deep gashes across David's back, arms, and legs, while her powerful jaws inflicted crushing injuries to his torso and neck. David's struggles grew progressively weaker as massive blood loss and trauma overwhelmed his system. The 500-pound grizzly eventually returned to her deer carcass, leaving David's lifeless body on the trail where he had fallen. The bear remained in the immediate area for several more days, continuing to feed on her original kill while occasionally investigating David's remains. Her territorial behavior kept other scavengers away from both food sources. David's body was discovered by search and rescue teams 2 days later when he failed to check in at the designated ranger station. The recovery operation required careful coordination with wildlife officials to ensure the safety of rescue personnel, as the grizzly was still defending her territory in the immediate area. The bear was monitored but not relocated, as wildlife officials determined that she had been defending a natural food source in her established territory. David's death was ruled as the result of human error in navigation and wildlife encounter protocols. The incident prompted renewed emphasis on wilderness safety education and the importance of proper preparation for solo backcountry travel. David's tragic death highlighted the critical importance of wilderness experience and proper safety equipment when venturing into grizzly country. His overconfidence and lack of preparation had put him in a situation where a single wrong decision proved fatal, serving as a sobering reminder that the wilderness demands respect and expertise from all who enter its domain. Thanks for watching. Click the next video that will show you why apex predators remain one of nature's most dangerous forces.